So I have to thank everyone who is still here. We've had the attrition rate has been a little bit high towards the end of the day, which is always sad. Lesson learned for me, you absolutely need to bribe the participants to stay, so we should absolutely have had a cocktail party or something like this. We lacked a bit in budget, but that was a mistake. So yeah, I'm going to say very few things and then leave the others to close. Just starting by the housekeeping, so please come tomorrow. We hope to see you. There will be some really interesting stuff. Starting in the morning with a short plenary and then a lot of workshops and talking in particular about data, but not only. A certain number of today's speakers will be doing some more in-depth workshops, and we'll hear also from people who we did hear from today. So I really hope that we'll see also more of the morning participants come back. Let's hope that they want the lunch and that they come back at least for the morning. On all the various things we heard, I'd just like to catch and say a few words about the last points about risk perception, tolerance, acceptance, and all of this. And I believe that the problem is often that the effort to try and talk seriously and genuinely with the public is not made. Politicians, media, everyone presumes that they are dumb, says dumb things, occupies all the space with dumbness, and then it's too late. And a lot of regulators, sometimes because they have no choice, because the politicians don't leave them in space, but are either not able to, or not authorized, or do not think of engaging more proactively with the public and explaining, this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is what you can reasonably expect, this is what you cannot expect. And so everybody ends up having all kinds of expectations of what regulators do. You know, like Grant was saying, you know, the people expect that the regulator is inspecting each and every product which is coming to the market, which, no, not really, you know? And that creates the seeds for a big misunderstanding, and when something happens, then people blame it on this and that and whatever. So, that's one. On social media, as a big user of social media myself for the last, whatever, too many years, 17, I think we say a lot of generalizations about social media sometimes. Yes, certainly it does actually offer also channels for people to change their mind and to get real risk information which they would not get. I mean, I can say, for instance, on nuclear energy, the disinformation was much more massively widespread in the 90s, when if you were exposed to anti-nuclear disinformation, you had no source of alternative discourse. Whereas now, if you're on social media, there will be somebody saying, oh, it's very bad, and then you'll have 50 nuclear engineers, physicists, etc., coming and saying, no, that's not true, here's data, 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 data. So there's an interesting dynamic here, actually, for creating a more reasonable space. And I completely, just to say, so I think what Ira was saying about crisis opening the possibility to rethink a certain level of risk aversion is very true. Taking the example of nuclear energy again, when the energy crisis started in Europe due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, you saw a certain number of countries where until now the trend had been increasingly against nuclear energy. Suddenly, people were like, okay, no, but wait a minute, we've actually never had anything happen from it, and we have reliable power. And then the discourse of people who were actually saying for many years, yeah, it's actually safe and fine, became audible, right? I mean, the crisis gave a space. So I'm thinking of other crises, right? In Europe, we have a big issue with a lot of public procurement and legislation being extremely rigid and making public procurement extremely difficult because we've had so much risk aversion for corruption that we created a mountain which does not prevent corruption, because corrupt things always happen on the margin, but makes legal business very difficult. And if we suddenly now have to really procure massive amounts of, hard security equipment, being tanks and missiles and things like this, we might have to rethink certain things. So again, it might be like the emergence of a bigger danger makes us rethink another danger where we're like, oh, well, this risk is maybe not as big as the other one, right? So I'm very glad that you were all here during this first day. Again, I hope many of you will be here the second day. I think it's a really interesting experience. It was the first we did here and the first of its kind, I think, anywhere. Even though we have all the excellent conferences which Graham and his team organized in London for many years. This one is a little bit different, and we'll be maybe working together on the next one in London as well. So let's see. Graham, London, there's something in London. In any case, there's something in London next January, right? Next January, everybody who was interested in what we discussed today, everybody goes to London. And on this, I'll hand the floor to Vilnius to do it.
Yes. Thank you very much for the time. First, I would like to sincerely thank the panel for the discussion that we had. Amazing quality of arguments, and I'm really glad that in this hall and in my alma mater we have you here. Thank you. The second thing, I would like to thank the remaining lawyers in this, lawyers from Vilnius University. In there, are you here? I'm a graduate of the law faculty myself, and one of my dreams was to somehow to bring managers of supervisory institutions and lawyers together so that they discuss for a while about the formal approach to legal rules that we should inspect everyone and all the legal requirements, and the practitioners who understand that it's not possible to inspect everyone, it's not possible, not practical, doesn't bring any good results. And I'm very glad that we have law faculty people here. Now that we are in one room, and maybe something will happen on both sides, on our side and also on the lawyer side. There are just a couple of remarks that I would like to know. During our workshop, Ira asked about whether we have proof that we actually preventing anything with all our nice instruments. And thank you very much for Singaporean experience. There was one tiny bit of real experiment where you said, look, we had a control group which we didn't apply the compliance promotion methods, and the experimental group where we targeted them with full force, and we have a difference. Not everybody has this luxury of helping one group and not helping the other, but this is a real example of a real experiment to show that it works on one hand, but this is an exception. This is an exception. In many instances we need to go, we think it works, we have historical evidence that it works, but I was delighted to hear this example. Also, I mentioned in my presentation the feature of courage. And I think that this is, I mean, it's a feature that everybody should have in their professional career, because there is always a possibility to go back. Always a possibility to say, okay, it's not my fight, let's leave it as it is, it's not my problem. So without courage, there is no change. And everybody here is talking about the change as the we are learning new things so that we could change. And finally, about risk communication, I think that if Ira was not able to confront his family in that situation, who is the agent to communicate them? Politicians? Businesses? Regulators? Maybe, yes, but with certain risks of being blamed, of not having enough courage to deal with new emerging risks. So I'm a bit skeptical that there is some kind of short-term solution to that. We will go slowly and in a difficult way. Thank you very much for this day. It's been a great pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow and continuing our discussion. Thank you.
How to come to effective results, because what really matters are the results. So, and not always the procedures, but rules are still needed, and crises may also foster change, they may foster innovation, they may invite us to do more, to do better, because challenges always bring a possibility of achieving something better, something new, and opens possibilities. Danger comes with opportunities. So I'm very happy to have my panelists today, and without any delay, I am glad to invite our first speaker, Mr. Christoph Morin. He's advisor, the Director General for Security, Space and Defense. So I am honored to invite one of our guests from the European Commission to take the floor and to give his speech. Or you may just hear it, it's more convenient.
Okay. Many thanks for the invitation. It's a privilege for me to provide you some insight about the perspective of the Commission, and especially from my DG dealing with space and defense. Crisis is, I would say, a kind of fuel also for the EU, because at each crisis we progress together. And as you said, risk management and crisis, it's a serious business, notably in the context with the war in Ukraine, but also it's an opportunity at the EU level. I would stress this positive aspect. Now, my insight is based on few legal texts at EU level. If you consider just the cyber security aspect, in the last years we have put on the table three legal texts, directives and regulations, improving in fact the cyber security at EU level. And it is quite interesting also to see this evolution. Because when you are dealing at EU level about risk, you are really in a gray zone related to the competence of the EU. Because risk management, security is the prime competence of member states. Then, when it is escalated at EU level, it means that there is a cross-border aspect, a common aspect, and a common interest. And just to illustrate, in fact, the evolution in the cyber domain, we have been able to evolve and to propose legal text to the member states due to the evolution in the cyber space, where member states have identified really a common risk, and at what moment say, okay, there is a national authority, it is a national issue, but there are trans and cross-border aspects, and we will do better together, and we have to do something. The similar thing is on the directive on critical infrastructure. Exactly the same aspect. How, in fact, at EU level, at one moment, member states came together and decided to have a common framework to deal with critical infrastructure because of cross-border impact. And again, in fact, if you consider the power grid in Europe and following, in fact, the connection of Baltic Sea states to European power grid, that it illustrates exactly this kind of context. How we can do better together. And my third example related to that, it is related to space. Space is sometimes defined as a global common. At EU level, we will put on the table of the member states, in fact, a proposal for a directive on space, putting in fact a kind of legal framework to ensure the security, but also the sustainability of the access to space. Now, if you consider this specific context, let's try to identify some limitations and related to your conference, who in fact the different speech and the different workshop. The key point is on data sharing and risk assessment. When at EU level you negotiate, because you negotiate a legal basis, a regulation or a directive, you are 27 member states. Then, de facto, you have the outcome of the negotiation is a compromise. And when it comes to security, the challenge is even more relevant because member states are quite cautious to share, in fact, their perspective, to share their data about, in fact, risk, how it is perceived, how it is mitigated at national level, and just the fact to share, in fact, some national assessment, some national perspective about a risk could generate another risk, meaning that you show to the community that perhaps you have weaknesses, and it triggers new risk, okay, notably, in fact, for national security. So, definitely, when we are managing those kind of regulation and discussing those kind of regulation at EU level, a key challenge in all the text, I would say all the text, it is the main points. It is related to information sharing on risk, to very cautiously limit the impact on national prerogative and national sovereignty. Then really the subsidiarity principle in that case is very stringent and it could impact also the efficiency. Okay, just it is not criticized, but if you consider the directive on critical infrastructure, it is to the member states we talk about framework, okay, to decide as part of the regulation to be stronger, to have a risk assessment by member states, but it is to member states to perform what we call the stress test. And you cannot imagine the difficulty to just come to an agreement on the skeleton of the report and the information that member states following the stress test could share with member states. Just to see, to provide you a sense of the difficulty and the sensitivity of those kind of discussion at EU level. Now, related to that, I would say that the good example, a good example also could be, in fact, the last NIS2 directive. In this NIS2 directive, we have inserted an option to member states to get organized at regional level. Then, you see, it's a kind of step-by-step approach where, in fact, in some regions, and I would say it has been very welcomed by Baltic Sea member states, where in fact there is I would say, a shared approach, a shared assessment of the risk, then and local, regional exchange that foster this cooperation. Then under an EU framework, you can develop, I would say, a regional approach that step by step could be aggregated at EU level. That's something, when you prepare your regulation at EU level, it's a very interesting approach that could foster, in fact, the cooperation and reach this barrier of the cautiousness of member states to share some very sensitive information. Now, I would ask to draw your attention on also the normative aspect of this kind of regulation. The NIS2 related to cyber, in fact, provide a legal framework for the cooperation related to cyber security, but also establish a role for ENISA, that is the agency, European agency dealing with cyber security, on, in fact, certifications. And through regulation related to risk management, you establish a kind of licensing process, certification process. It's a very sensitive issue for business development and market development. Then there is two aspects related to that. First of all, we have to strike the right balance between establishing norms and the capability to provide to the industry a fair playing level field in order for them to develop, to innovate. And it is especially the case in the field of space and cyber, where the technology and the evolution of the technology is very, very fast. And it is very difficult to catch up and to keep, in fact, the same level of development, how you adapt to regulation, to the evolution of the technology. And I don't want to put on the table, in fact, the current discussion on the development of artificial intelligence, how we should put some regulatory framework, because there are risks also, but also how this kind of regulatory framework could impact also the business development. Then that is the first aspect. Then internally, and that's the main objective and the main purpose of the EU. It is to build, in fact, a community and the global market, global market. It is important to also provide to European industry, in fact, a level playing field, enabling them to progress and to develop and to innovate. Now, the second aspect about this normative impact of any kind of directive regulation related to security. That is also the competition between the different modes. If you develop a norm, you develop a licensing system, definitely, in that case, you have to engage also your partners in order to have a common understanding and a common leverage on that. And sometimes it is difficult to put it diplomatically correct, but also we have not to be naive. And in the media and following the recent crisis and the evolution in different parts of the world, in fact, papers are stressing the naivety of the EU. When you are establishing a norm, you are putting competition between the different blocks. And just to give you an example related to space, we have developed, in fact, the Galileo system. The Galileo system is a European system that provides different services, and notably commercial services. To operate this system globally, you need, in fact, licensing. And just to illustrate, in fact, the different approach between the different partners, if you fly to Russia, to Moscow, any aircraft has to be equipped with a Russian system, GLONASS. If not, you cannot fly to Russia. Same thing, if you go to Washington, you have to be equipped with GPS, its norms. You can go to Paris, to Vilnius, to Berlin airport. You can be equipped with GLONASS, you can be equipped with GPS. There is no obligation licensing system that obliges you to be equipped with EU system. Just it's an illustration of the licensing and the normative aspect of this kind of security rules. Okay? And how it could be used between partners as a leverage to disrupt sometimes the level playing field between partners. And we have to take that into account. For example, today, Galileo, we are developing commercial services, but those commercial services cannot be deployed in the US because we have not received, in fact, a specific license for those commercial services. You see the difficulty and how this normative aspect could be used at global level. Now, two final points. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit long. In fact, at EU level, one key motto now is a simplification, administrative law. And that's something that is for us a priority, because first of all, we recognize that all the additional layers put on industry a very heavy burden for administration. Now we have to strike in fact, the right balance between, if we want to be effective when it comes to risk management, you need to exert some checks and controls that, for example, the certification is properly done, and that the member states are properly sharing information, are properly equipped. That's of the interest of all the member states and all the partners. Then it is all again a balance to be struck when we negotiate those kind of texts. And I'm coming back to the term negotiation. When you negotiate a provision in the regulatory framework, it becomes sometimes quite difficult to understand, and at EU level we have this wording when sometimes we are developed in negotiation, that is constructive ambiguity, meaning that all the parties understand the same provision the way they could accept it. Now the difficulty, and that's related to the administrative burden, when it comes to the implementation, definitely the way it is implemented in the different member states is totally different because we don't share the same system. And it comes to level playing field, it comes also to additional administrative burden that it is not useful, and if we let's dream within 100 years perhaps, we will be in a position where we have enough trust between member states to overcome this kind of difficulty. But sorry, it is off a record narrative. But just to finish on a very positive side, I would like just to finish with the example of the space program, EU space program, and how we are dealing with the risk management. Because the EU program, I don't know if you are familiar with Galileo system, with Copernicus system, they are purely integrated, meaning it's a joint program. Together, 27 member states come together, fund a critical infrastructure for the entire Union. That's, I would say, the maximum level of integration at EU. Together, we built a single system, a single infrastructure for the benefit of EU citizens. But also, those systems are contributing to the security of EU citizens. Now, in all our systems, we plan to have what we call governmental services, meaning for Galileo, we will have positioning services with a limited access to government. IRIDE is a new EU space program that will provide secure communication for government. Copernicus, you are fully aware about Copernicus and about climate change and security. And here we have been able to put together, in fact, and to align the way member states deal with security in a single program where the risk assessment is shared at EU level, where the accreditation, the certification program is done fully integrated between the member states, and that's, I would say, the one key example where when the trust is built between member states, when in fact we agree to share information, to share risk assessment, to put together resources, we can achieve in fact great things for the security of the EU and the security of EU citizens. Yeah.
Mr. Krishna Maran, your insights are much appreciated. Thank you very much for providing the possibility to arrive here in Vilnius and to share with us your insights, including that there is a long journey from the ideas and the results that we aim to achieve, yes, and so much in between values, expectations, constitutional traditions, limited resources, and perhaps one of the ways to fight risks is well, to prepare for them, expecting that they will not happen. But as we realized on the conference day one, that if we follow the same pattern, perhaps we will not reach different results. So we are learning today further. And I'm very happy to invite my colleague, Vice Dean Professor Jurgita Kovžaitė-Kruvickienė, who is Vice Dean for Science at the Law Faculty of Vilnius University, and also is the head of the Institute of Administrative Law and Administrative Justice. Dear Jurgita, please take the time for slides.
Thank you. Good morning.
And Tim.
Yeah, of course, I will try to do my presentation in a very short way, but perhaps I will be able to share with you the slides down the top, on the desktop here. Okay. Yeah, dear colleagues, dear participants of the conference, today it's really for me a big pleasure to speak with you as a representative from the hosting institution, from the law faculty of Vilnius University. We had interesting discussion yesterday and today, and all of the discussions were dedicated to regulating how to regulate major public risk. And actually we can speak about two levels. About macro level, the presentation of my colleague was about it, about the normative order and the normative impact on EU level, on national level, but we can speak about the micro level too. Because every normative level, it creates some duties for private market, for business entities, and some rights as well. In postmodern states, we are not able anymore to speak only about the duties. We can speak about rights, including procedural rights of business entities, and sometimes, not sometimes, but always, actually we need to find a balance between private interest and public interest. So, on different geopolitical issues, climate change, environmental issues, security challenges, all of them drive increasing demand for the EU, for European Union, as well for the national state. But for the regulatory institutions and business entities, they must implement this normative impact in the national legal order. And based on the constitutional principle on the right for economic freedom, which is not absolute, we have very interesting construction. On one hand, we have, as mentioned before, right of freedom to make a business, to implement some economic interests. But on the other hand, we have state and we have the public interest, including major public risk. In some national constitutions, we can find very interesting construction, and I would like to give you an example from my constitution, from Lithuania. Article 46. Article 46, paragraph 1, provides the state shall regulate economic activity so that it serves the general welfare of the nation, of the state, of the society, etc. And based on that, the comprehensive legal framework of the Constitutional Court and administrative courts was developed. How can the regulatory authority regulate and supervise, and of course, in full cabaret cases, to sanction the business implementing these normative issues? The regulatory authority of the state aims not only and its issues and focus not only on economic growth, ensure the sustainable functioning of the economy, but the state must also provide the rules and comply with business supervision and regulation with constitutional requirements, and first of all with the principle of rule of law. And this principle implies that state authority and state must respect principle of good administration, including non-discrimination, proportionality, and constitutional right to seek, sometimes to seek judicial review in cases where state institutions violate the regulation or supervision of economic activity. In many countries, a paradigmatic shift has occurred where state institutions oversight based on commands and control to a new OECD developed approach. I mentioned OECD because really the supranational organization made a big impact regulating in a new form, in a new trend, the market supervision. And this new OECD developed approach, the advice and consultations have become the primary tools for regulators, are very important. In other words, we now moved from enforcers, state as enforcer, to the state as advisor. That changes can be seen as, in a broader sense, as transformation of administrative law from classical administrative law into a postmodern form, one what defines administrative law as more open and guiding rather than a forcer of rules. And in this perspective, regulatory authority, the institution, is a facilitator, advisor, and risk regulator, and not a formal rule enforcer. And yesterday we had spoken a lot about what does it mean better regulatory delivery. Less regulation, or more regulation. From the practical perspective, even from regulatory authority or business entity, the answer is the same. Both of them need clear and transparent legal regulation, giving the trust into the state. And indeed, the question is not about the quantity. It is about the quality of regulatory norms. And one of very important part of the quality of regulatory norms is the new risk-based approach. The EU Act, the new Artificial Intelligence Act, explains this balance between the regulation and risk-taking in IE area. Developing this risk-based approach in the supervision and investigation of businesses, we have, first of all, very significant EU influence for member states. And I would like to mention very nice research of our colleague, Florentin Bank, for 2020, together with Mr. Correa, Smart Enforcement in the EU, which revealed that, first of all, in the food safety sector and environmental protection sector, EU legislation mandates the application of risk-based assessment. So, EU has and will have, I believe, in the future, significant impact on national member states transposing new requirements, including mandatory risk-based approach. But when we don't have such a case, the member state must decide by himself how to regulate risk-based approach in state national legislation. And to be honest, during the yesterday discussion, I believe that we have a lot of different definition of risk based on different sectors. And we cannot provide only one classification of the types of risk. Because, again, the economic sectors are highly individual. And similar is in the administrative law doctrine. The prevailing view is that there is no universal legal definition of risk in legal scholarship. And as a rule, legal risk can be described as a combination of the probability that something will occur and the consequences or damages that may arise. But we speak about risk assessment as an administrative procedure which must be focused in each case by the supervision on private entities. However, if the regulatory authority do not base their activity on risk assessment and fail to manage risk, the result is a significant administrative burden and legal uncertainty for economic entities. And much it contradicts to the principle of good administration and rule of law, because it's not respecting the procedural justice, which are binding for regulatory delivery under the national constitutional legal framework. Let me give one example how we are going to do this risk-based approach. First of all, I would like to mention, yesterday was already mentioned several times, our law on public administration. And our former Minister of Justice, Vilnius, was a pioneer who actually delivered to Lithuania this new approach to the private business, how to regulate with the state norms the relationship between a state, and how to create this balance of procedural rights between the state and private person. This law was changed several times, and from 2015 we made significant novelties, involved significant novelties in this law, and we introduced in the law the special legal principle. The legal principle, risk assessment principle, which must be actually respected in all cases. This law is a minimum standard law for all business entities and for all market sectors. Of course, we can have some explanations that this law is not directly applicable, but the jurisprudence and the court case law practice of Supreme Administrative Law were trying to strengthen this rule of this law as a minimum standard law. So we have risk-based approach as a legal principle, which means that this principle must be applied in all forms of supervision of private entity. So starting from the beginning, from the monitoring, starting the planning of investigation, inspection, and then we apply enforcement measures as well. So we have several articles in this law, and the praxis is very different. It's very different how our national institutions are applying this risk-based approach. I took a look yesterday to the COBALT data, which is the instrument and measure of our Ministry of economic and innovation. And some institutions are very friendly to risk-based approach. They had created very scientification and very good legal normative basic, like Bank of Lithuania or Communication Regulatory Authority or State Nuclear Power State Inspectorate. Some of them need to be improved, but we are moving in this direction. And for summarizing, of course, the court practice helps to implement this risk-based approach too. And if I would like to write only one, the last case law example from Supreme Administrative Court. It was a case with competition authority, national competition authority, which refused to initiate an investigation. The other private company claimed against this refusal, but the Supreme Administrative Court clarified that Competition Council has adopted the annual priorities working plan. And this annual priorities working plan was not mentioned the investigation of labor law sector. And from that point of view, the answer from the competition authority not to start an investigation was fully respected from the side of the court. So, summarizing this short introduction to the micro level, how we are implementing the risk-based approach on the national level, I would say that business supervision reform granted for risk-based approach the status of legal principle. That means that we made this approach on very high level, and as a result, a lot of national supervision authorities significant change their functions and their work style, daily work style. What is not achieved and what could be recommended, that this risk-based approach should be applied in all sectors, from the beginning until the end. Because at the moment in regulation it is not so clearly stated that this risk-based approach is obliged, and where we can think how to implement them or not implement them. From that point of view, I thank you for your attention for this micro case into Lithuania, and thank you very much for this conference, and really for this great opportunity. I think in Vilnius we didn't have such a conference before, where a lot of experts from different countries discussed the question about the regulatory policy and law, how to improve the law on regulatory delivery. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear Rita. Yes, indeed, perhaps the first time we have volunteered days of such scale event on this particular topic with so many brilliant speakers. And may I take a minute to explain why we are soon half an hour ahead of the schedule. As you may notice, we have some changes in the program due to objective reasons. Colleague Laura cannot present today, but we will continue with our distinguished guest who traveled from Taiwan. is ready now to give his presentation. Mr. Min Chang Chang, may I kindly invite you to take time to prepare your slides, and meanwhile I would really share a few words about you to present with you as a Deputy Director of Air and Coast Division of the Water Resources Agency, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Thailand. And Mr. Chang Chang is responsible for the governance and management of Thailand's major rivers and coasts, focuses on responding to the frequent occurrence of extreme rainfall events due to climate change in recent years, ensuring the safety of food control structures and reducing food disasters. And previously worked at the Water Resources Management Division and was responsible for water supplies, scheduling, and relief work. So with more than 10 years of experience on the topic, which includes the climate change, we do not have planet B, and the climate change is what we can witness also in Vilnius. So during this time of season. Yeah, so we are ready to listen to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. That's the longest one I heard from these 2 days. Thank you. And I'm going to talk about climate risk from Taiwan and how we deal with it. How much time is it?
Can I just take 10 minutes because we are quite late? It would be wonderful.
Could be 12.
Okay. I will set a timer. In East Asia, on the northwestern edge of the Pacific Ocean, and with an area of about 36,000 square kilometers, about 2/3 of the island consists of mountains and hills. Our climate is in a transition zone between the tropical and subtropical climate. As you can see in this map picture, this is map illustrating the tracks of all tropical cyclones during the 2024 Northwestern Pacific. We call it typhoon in Asia. In total, 26 typhoons developed, and with 4 of them direct landfall Taiwan. And on the right picture, you can see that the well-defined eye of the typhoon and its massive size. The impact of typhoon on Taiwan is usually significant. As you can see, the influence often extends across the entire island. And also because of the typhoon, Taiwan has an average annual rainfall of nearly 2,500 millimeters, which is about 2.5 times of the global average. And however, Taiwan has a high population density. We have about 23 million population within 36,000 square kilometers. So the per capita precipitation is only about 1/5 of the global average. Also, we have most rainfall happens in the wet season from May to October, only 20% in dry season. This imbalance means that we need very good water facilities for storage water to maintain a still steady water supply all year long. Also, most rivers in Taiwan are often a very steep slope. Most rivers are from elevation more than 2,000 kilometers to zero, within less than 200 kilometers in distance. You can see compared to other rivers in the world, like Japan, US, or Europe, we have much steeper gradient. So we have a total 95 reservoirs. And 27 is the major reservoirs. Reservoirs became a very crucial role in Taiwan for water supply and flood control. In terms of water usage, agriculture is the most consumer for about 70% of total water. Domestic water is about just 20%. And industrial use accounts for the remaining 10%. So basically, we have a climate change challenge in 3 ways. First is the climate change, and climate change is making droughts more frequent and rainfall more intense. And also urbanization and industrial growth, especially in major cities, putting more press on water supply. Also, public expectation for clean waters and a better water environment are rising. Next, I will give you an example that happened in 2020 to 2021, a very severe water shortage in Taiwan. There was no typhoon bring enough rain during the wet season, and even less water during dry season. So for the whole year, only 1/3 of the rainwater in Taiwan. 1/3 of rainwater is about 880 millimeters, which is still a lot for many places. But in Taiwan, most of our water infrastructures and water use management plans is based on this expected average rainfall. So with only 1/3 of this rainfall, to maintain stable water distribution becomes very difficult. As you can see, some reservoirs in western Taiwan, the capacity dropped to about 1%. And don't forget, in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic was harming the global economy, and Taiwan has the largest semiconductor foundry, TSMC. The foundry factory requires large amount of water for cleaning and cooling process. This kind of water shortage could impact the chip production. As a result, the world watch closely this climate drought. So, I mean, this is really a black swan risk to us. We expect the water shortage based on the IPCC AR5, AR6 scenario. We downscale modeling the possible situation, but we don't expect only 1/3 situation. So what we do is that we quickly establish the emergency operation response. By July 2020, we have already started our emergency response team. By October, the central government activated highest level disaster response center. This is important because only the central DOC has the authority to suspend or modify certain regulation. For example, after the COC established, we transfer some water rights. We suspend agricultural irrigation water in some places. We also lower the basic rainfall from some reservoirs. So also the biggest challenge in drought management is to predict when and where a water shortage will occur and over. So our approach is to continuously monitor water conditions in reservoirs, assess risk, to carry out mitigation measures, and repeat this process. And within the response center, this drought response requires both internal and external coordination among water suppliers, users, and different stakeholders. So, except Ministry of Economic Affairs is the commander of the drought response task force. Other key members included representatives from the agricultural industry, meteorology, education, health, and other relevant government agencies. What we do is very flexibly to take measures. For example, we save water, we find water, we change the water supply zones from different reservoirs, and we do a lot of things that we never did before. For example, we use groundwater well. We find hyporetic flow desalination water. We even use the groundwater from construction site. All these measures were actually very high cost, but very limited water amount. But this kind of measures actually let the public aware the situation, because for the water shortage countermeasure, more public, and whenever people can still have water from this tap slot faucet, most of them did not aware the actual situation. But by doing this, people start to know that we are in a water shortage and bring very high saving efficiency from domestic water use. So eventually, 31% of water demand from reservoirs was reduced. So we were lucky. This rainfall finally arrived just in time in the second wet season. So although this historical drought was extremely severe, the impact on the public was minimized. Also, for those high-tech factories, the impact is actually not much as expected. And just in 2 months after the drought ends, a rainy season starts. Nearly a year's rain fell within just 10 days in the southern Taiwan. This caused some flooding, but thankfully no casualty. But this was a clear reminder of the growing impact of extremely weather. And we have known that the traditional engineering measures have their limits. So now we are more focusing on non-engineering measures, including early warning systems, localization, flood detection, and other evacuation measures. We are using AI and other tools to enhance flood risk management, including real-time flood monitoring, AI-powered image recognition, mobile phone apps. And at last, don't be, I want to say, don't be frightened by the flood and drought I just mentioned. I haven't mentioned the earthquake yet, but no. Anyway, if you have chance, please visit Taiwan. We have a very good sightseeing and amazing street food paradise of the time. And thank you all for you.